Exactly what went wrong.
Air pressure adjustment you were talking about before.
That's how you adjust these cars these days, Alan. You have to have your setup right when the race starts. You got to have your springs and your track bar and everything the way it needs to be, and then you got to be that close. So a pound of air here or there will make a car drive like Carl just drove around Reed.
Kind of looked like Reed saw that coming and waved him by with that pull over to the inside. But Carl Edwards now back up to second, Lindsay.
Carl Edwards is extremely happy with this car, and I can imagine why, but he said that he's starting to have a hard time getting it to turn through the corners of 3 and 4. However, you just saw him gain that spot on Reed, and also his crew had been a little bit disappointed in that last stop that we saw on lap 37. They took a little bit longer than everybody in this crew wanted it to take, but obviously they've gotten control of the problem right now. We'll keep you posted, though, as far as him feeling tight in the corners.
You know, it's funny, Alan, before the race we said everybody's going to be tight. And people at home probably thinking, well, why are they doing that? They should have known that. They could have fixed it. That just shows you how tough this job is and how hard it is to get a car to drive like our leader, Denny Hamlin, is.
I tell you what, they look like they have improved this car with the adjustments they made at the pit stop, because he has driven away from second place by nearly a second and a half. Denny Hamlin out in front in St. Louis. Back live, Gateway International Raceway near St. Louis on TNT, the Nascar Busch Series at lap 72 of 200. You're looking at Reed Sorensen now struggling to hold on to fourth place, with Scott Wimmer pressuring him from behind. Clint Boyer in the 2 car went by him a minute ago, and it's got a little interesting for a second.
When a car goes away in such a hurry, Alan, when it isn't handling right, Reed got all over the place exiting turn 4. Clint rode up on him and maybe bumped him a little bit.
Reed had his hands full there trying to control that car off the corner.
But you see Reed lays over because he knows his car isn't right now. We see a little bit of smoke off the 66, probably just a tire rev.
We really haven't talked about Scott Wimmer in that 66 much, but very solid race so far. 5th position, Ralph.
This is another one of those cars where there's not a lot of talking going on, Alan. Scott Wimmer right now is pretty silent on the radio, which usually means things are going pretty good inside the cockpit. He was tied off and loose in before the caution. They made an air pressure adjustment. There's that air pressure adjustment again. Slapped 4 new tires on it, and he's going right towards the front.
Wimmer driving for Bruco Racing. Luke Moore, the crew chief. This car that Greg Diffel drove a lot last year.
I drove it at Nashville earlier this season and got a top 10 finish, and I love working with Newt Moore. He's just a racer guy.
Yes.
Newt and I raced each other back in 1981 in Owensboro, Kentucky. That's how far our relationship goes back. He had a mini stock car and I had one, and we raced the heck out of one another. And he's been hard at racing ever since then.
Wimmer kind of hit that curve. It looked like it had a little bobble up off the corner.
That curve will get your attention.
I guarantee it got his there a second ago. Paul Menard racing Johnny Sauter for 11th and 12th places. Menard slipping back from 6th starting spot. Ralph?
The problem with the 11 is Paul Menard is starting to feel like the motor's laying down. And as we've talked about, there's very long straightaways here at Gateway. So if your motor's laying down, you've got a real problem on your hand. Now, if you want to compound that, it's starting to spit liquids out the engine. So, guys, I know you said earlier that you didn't think that heat buildup in these motors due to the lack of oil in this unleaded fuel was going to be an issue. But I'm telling you, everybody in the garage area says they're not so sure about that, and that heat could be a real problem. And if we start seeing engine problems, we might be talking more about it as the night goes on.
Well, find out.
Could be a story. I can't see it. I think these teams will adapt and adjust to it, run it over the dyno, understand what it does, and be ready for tonight.
The debut of unleaded racing fuel in NASCAR big-time racing tonight here in St. Louis. Lindsay?
Yeah, you guys asked what happened on that pit stop for David Rudiman. I just talked to his crew chief, and he said the lug nuts came off. They popped off basically on the left front tire. So, you know, they fixed the car, they fixed the issue, and hopefully they can gain position from there.
For the folks at home, the teams glue the lug nuts to the wheel. And the lug stud itself is tapered, so when you put the wheel up on there, the nuts are already on the wheel, and you just hit them with the gun. Sometimes you put the wheel up there a little bit crooked, or maybe they didn't get glued properly. Some will pop off. It looked like maybe multiple. We see one pop off a lot. Looked like maybe multiple ones popped off on in that case.
There's Denny Hamlin, the leader, trying to find his way through side-by-side lap cars, and Carl Edwards coming into the picture in a hurry.
I bet you Carl's grinning. He's got a car he can win a race in his hometown with. That's a good time right there.
Yeah.
That's 83 of Dale Jr.'s car of Huffman. He's already got one free pass. He's going to have to get lucky to grab another one here and get back on the lead lap.
Denny Hamlin had a big lead over Carl Edwards a little while ago. That's kind of evaporated, Ralph. You saying anything?
Yeah, it did evaporate, Alan. And when they first put these 4 new tires on the car, it was a little bit loose, and he was complaining about that. As this run started to develop, the car started to turn around pretty good. However, he really wants more bite coming off the corner. And as we've talked about throughout this race, getting off the corner is the key, and that's probably where the rest of the competition, especially Carl Edwards, is making up the ground.
When you dive down into the corner, you got to get your car turning in the center, and then once you accomplish that, you get your car turning in the center, you mat the gas. Well, then if it pushes off or if you can't get it to turn off, you lose all that momentum. So again, the key to running well here is having a car you can drive up off the turn wide open. Use all that power you got under the hood.
Denny Hamlin told me his win at Darlington validated for himself and his team that they could win on the big oval tracks. He's out in front in St. Louis tonight. Follow your favorite driver with real-time telemetry and in-car audio. It's Track Pass from NASCAR.com. Subscribe today and get it at a discounted price. Learn more about Track Pass at NASCAR.com.
That Track Pass is fun.
Yeah.
You get right in on what's happening.
Something I've been watching here for a little while. You see all this rubber building up on the top of the racetrack. I've been noticed that's not all that unusual, but I've been just seeing it fly off the cars in the corners, Michael, during green flag action. Is that something a driver gets concerned about?
Not really. We've seen it so much, Alan. Over the years, you had soft tires, and you go to hard tires, and it shaves off in different forms and fashion. Sometimes a hunk of rubber will fly out and hit you in the windshield. You think you've been shot. I mean, it just makes that much noise, but it really isn't a factor. You understand that's part of the game. When it is a concern is when you start running that higher line and you get right out there next to where that rubber lays. You know, if you slip over the edge, get just a half a tire in it, your car is liable to crash because of that rubble of the tires up there.
Heard about Paul Menard thinking he maybe had some developing problems under the hood. I guess they have developed, huh, Ralph?
They sure have. The hood is up on the number 11. The crew is scrambling back and forth over the wall. They were focusing early on in the carburetor area of the car. Not sure what the problem is yet. They haven't said it, and the crew guys that went over the wall are looking around, working on belts, but I'm not hearing anything exactly as to what the problem is. They seem to be checking just to make sure everything is tightened up. They're going to put the hood back, and it looks like they're going to send him back out. But they originally were talking about the carburetor. That was the area they focused on first. Back out to Paul Menard.
7th place driver in points in trouble here in St. Louis. You see the leaders in some heavy lap traffic. Aaron Crocker in 98, Kenny Wallace in 22, 25th and 24th place drivers going a lap down.
This isn't at all how Kenny Wallace envisioned this night going. He loves this track. He loves this town, and he's just not competitive.
He started in 10th.
He's also was the 10th place driver in points coming into tonight's race, and he's fallen out of the top 10. So costly night for Kenny so far. Maybe he can rebound.
Got a long way to go in this one, not quite to halfway. We know how many twists and turns these races take.
I mean, just another 20 laps or so, we're talking about green flag pit stops. And that always gets things confusing. Did you see that move? He lost a lot of momentum, though. Watch Carl come firing down the middle.
That was Carl Long in the 23 that Hamlin kind of had some indecision about which way to go around.
There's Stephen Wallace. We've said all night long he can't do anything with that car. It just won't stay low for him. You can hear him way off the gas exiting the corner there.
Let's see how much ground he gave up to Hamlin.
That's Kenny and Steve running 22nd and 23rd, and Mike Wallace is up in the top 10, running 9th right now. So
60 car inside. Still there, clear behind him.
see,
Clear behind him, clear by 40 Kenny. Not on your corner.
out into the wall.
Right inside. Keep it up there. It's clear, clear. 2 more coming. Inside.
Oh, see, hit it again. He got up in that rubber, Alan, we were talking about it. You saw it flying off his tires as he went high. This could bring a caution out.
Has not yet. Still under green. And Steven now with some right side damage and trying to find out. Oh, he's going to hit with those marbles again.
You see, that was a case where he should have just taken that blow and backed off and got it back down out of the road. He tried to get that thing going again and just was up out of the groove and got in that rubber and hit the wall.
So Stephen Wallace will head for pit lane and get some work done on the car owned by his father, Rusty. Up front, no change, top two. Still Carl Edwards chasing after Denny Hamlin. Hamlin has led all of the laps in tonight's race so far. We're just about to halfway here at Gateway International Raceway. Race to your mailbox and find your blue Valpak envelope. It's full of savings and a chance to win a VIP grandstand getaway. Valpak, there's something in it for you. TNT Live, Gateway International Raceway outside of St. Louis. Alan Bestwick with Michael Waltrip tonight. Ralph Shaheen and Lindsey Zarniak on pit road. You're watching Kevin Harvick in 6th place, the 21, the Busch Series championship leader, try and take 5th from Reed Sorensen.
And he did. There's a big gap behind those two cars, Alan. Reed, knowing that Kevin was faster, just let him roll by right there, not to lose any more ground to the people behind him. That's a smart move. That's the way you got to race early in the race or midway through the race.
Are you seeing that in your mirror, or are you getting that information from your spotter?
Both. A little bit of both. You know what's going on around you. That's your job. And then your spotter's always chiming in to give you his 2 cents worth, too.
Kevin Harvick started this race in 3rd position, fell back, took some extra time on the first set of pit stops to put a spring rubber into that car, now trying to make his way back toward the front. Stephen Wallace has made his way on and off pit road, what, 3 times now, Ralph?
It's actually, but he's getting ready to make his 3rd. There is definitely right front damage to the car. He said to the crew that the car went straight to the wall. He felt like something broke in the car. When he brought the car back around, all 4 tires were completely inflated, and he said he still swears that something broke in the car. At this point in time, they do know that they have a lot of damage to the suspension pieces on the right front of the car. So they're going to bring it back in here and try to straighten this car out. And the biggest thing is the crew chief is just trying to calm him down and get his head back and focused.
Stephen Wallace has had an adventurous day so far. The 18-year-old son of the former NASCAR champion Rusty in not Stephen's hometown, because he was born and raised in North Carolina after Rusty and family moved there, but in the family's hometown has had a tough night.
You see, Alan, he just got that thing out of the groove there off turn 4, and I'm sure it felt just like that something broke, because once it gets up in the marbles, it won't turn at all.
And again,
I bet you just assumed to quit showing that.
probably.
But this is all part of the learning curve. What you want, I talked to Rusty last night. He wants Steven to be fast, and he is. Everywhere he goes, he's fast. He's going to run into stuff. He's going to make mistakes, but he'll learn from it. You can't teach someone to go fast. You can just teach them how to race smarter.
Stephen right now 5 laps down in 35th place after the pit stops for repairs. No change up front. Denny Hamlin. Actually, I say no change. He's moved away from Carl Edwards now. And this is kind of a repeat of what we saw in the first green flag run of the race, Michael. Carl closed in, and then later in the run, Denny got away.
And I think that Carl obviously realizes that too. He sees Denny, he sees where he's better than Denny and Denny better than him, and he'll work on his car because that. Denny might not realize it as much as Carl does because he's watching him get away. Carl will be more inspired to do something to his car to try to beat Denny than Denny will be trying to fend off Carl, because right now it's all working. But that's what happens sometimes. The guy behind you works on his car, you're afraid to do much to yours, and all of a sudden that guy gets better than you.
J.J. Yaley coming back onto the track after repairs in the garage from his bounce off the wall. Back at lap number 39. Only caution of the race so far. And the pit window's open.
Yeah, and the green flag pit stops have begun. The 56 car of Kevin Grubb was running the 11th spot. He came to pit road. We saw Bernie Lamar. He's been on pit road. So those guys particularly are saying, okay, let's go through this caution, this pit window, this pit cycle without the caution flag flying. It'll ruin your night if you hit pit road and then the caution falls, because the leader hasn't pitted yet. He'll put you a couple laps down.
And it's the big risk right now for Denny Hamlin if he has to pit short of what some of the other guys do to get on the pits, have a caution come out, trap him a lap down with a car that's this strong.
Well, the 4th and 5th place cars